Welcome back to our BLESS study where we have been unpacking this BLESS acronym, which stands for Begin in Prayer, Listen, Eat, Serve, and Share. And as we continue to reflect on this acronym, I think we're going to begin to see the power of just having this tool in the back of our minds. And listen, this is something that doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to become an everyday missionary after you walk out of the room today. That's probably not going to happen, but as you continue to ruminate on this, as you continue to think about this, it's going to make an impact. Really living out BLESS takes time, and right now we're just reflecting on it, we're chewing on it, we're considering what it might look like, and we're giving ourselves some action steps, and it's going to be exciting to see how it all unfolds, and I'm excited to see how it goes for you guys. But last week we started with prayer. Begin in prayer. And I hope that as we talked about that last night, that there were some things in our conversation, some things in the video, some things in your discussion together that really started to challenge how you pray, what you're praying for, that you're actually beginning to ask God, where are you at work? How can I join you in my neighborhood, in my workplace, in my school, wherever you happen to live, work, study, or play? And so today we're going to unpack listen. Because if we start serving and evangelizing our community without first listening with our eyes, with our ears, and our hearts, we're going to be deaf to what Jesus is already doing there. And we're not going to be able to serve them in the way that they really need. We're not going to be able to share the good news in the way that they really need. If we just start talking at them thinking this is what they really need to hear, it's just going to be noise, not good news. And so we need to really listen. And you'll notice as we keep going through the acronym that BLESS really kind of is in a loop. It always goes from beginning in prayer to listen, then back to begin in prayer to listen and to eat, and back to begin in prayer, and so on and so forth. Because as you begin to learn and you're hearing people's stories and you're hearing needs, you're taking them back to God and you're saying, God, I hear what you're doing in this person's life, in this community, in this neighborhood. Can I partner with you in that? And so you continue to bring it back to God, and you're continuing to get more insights to what God is doing. And so as we think about listening, what does that look like in a missionary lifestyle? How do we even begin to think about doing that? Well, I want you to picture this. Let's say you're feeling sick. You're very stuffy, you're congested, you got a little bit of some coughing, and so, I got to go to the doctor, I got to get this checked out. And so you go to the doctor, and you're in the waiting room with the fish, and you fill out your intake form, and you finally get called in to see the doctor. The doctor takes one look at you, doesn't take out of the stethoscope, doesn't take any doesn't say, put the tongue depressor on your tongue, look into your throat. He doesn't do anything. The only thing he does is says, I know what you need, and he prescribes you some pain medication. What would you be feeling in that moment? You'd be thinking like, dude, you didn't even ask me how I was feeling. You didn't even inquire. You didn't look and see what I really needed. And isn't that kind of how we as a church sometimes go about it? The Christian church can get engaged in some good things, but maybe not the things that those people need or that community needs. Case in point, I have a friend in Tennessee, and he's part of a nonprofit coalition that works together to serve the poor and the homeless in downtown Knoxville. And he was a part of a conversation one day, and they did not know he was a pastor. And they started griping and complaining about all those suburban Christians that come in with their clothes and their food and all this stuff, and they just make a huge mess. They didn't ask us how we could support. They didn't ask us how they could partner with us. They just came in and then they took off, and then we have to clean up their mess. That was very telling for my friend, and as he told me, very telling for me as well. You see, we have to give people the good news they need to hear. Otherwise, it's not good news. It's noise. It's bad noise. And so how do we begin to listen to people in our community? Well, there's a macro and a micro level. Macro being large scale. I want you to think about, where do you live? I live in Midland, Michigan. I have a town. There's a mayor. There's a council. There's news. There's a large company here. All these kinds of things that you can kind of discern and figure out pretty quickly, but then you can go a little deeper. So if you're to be intentional about this, it's really paying attention to local stuff. What's going on? What is the heartbeat of my community? Because if you're going to listen to know what's going on in your neighborhood, what's going on in your city, you ever got, right now there's construction happening on my street, and we're all kind of, all the neighbors are kind of, there's a hubbub, and we're like, what's going on? Why is this happening? And there are things that are happening similar to construction. There's a reason for it. There's a background for it. There's a story for it. There is precedent. And if you can put your ear to the ground, you can understand. And some of the ways you can go about doing that is just, reading the local paper. Do you have a local rag or a local, like an online blog or some kind of news source that is hyper-local to your context? Do you read it? Read it. Look at the articles. What are they talking about? Why does it matter? Why do these things matter? What's really important to this community? What events are going on? What are you learning about the festivals and the fairs and the experiences that a city puts on? What are you learning about the people when these are the kinds of things that populate? Look at the community post-its. Go to a coffee shop, go to a Panera Bread, those places that have a local community happening board. What is on those boards? Why are those things there? Check them out. Why would you go to those things? Why are moms going to these meetups? Is there a need for community, right? There's all these sorts of things you can start asking questions about. Who's your local city or town council person? Who's the mayor? Have you met with them? Have you talked to them? Maybe your council person would want to meet with you, a person in their community that says, hey, I want to be kind of intentional about how I care about my neighbors. Could we talk about that? I just sent an email earlier today. Hey, I live in Ward 5 in Midland, Michigan. You're my council person. Could we have a conversation? I want to be a good neighbor. I think that'd be really welcome and received by a local elected official. What's going on in the parent world? What's going on in schools? What matters to them? What sports are happening? What kind of leagues are there? Have your ear to the ground. Get your stethoscope out on your community and start listening to the heartbeat and ask God, man, what are you up to? What are you doing? Was there anything that's being stirred in me as I hear about these sorts of events and pain points perhaps in the community? And related to this is my experience is if you've lived somewhere for a very long time. I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan in Cascade Township. I didn't know really anything outside of kind of the local places. I went to my church, I went to my school, I knew the roads, I knew how to get around, but then it actually took my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, to show me around like downtown Grand Rapids, and she asked me about different things. I just had no idea that they were even there. And I think this is an opportunity for us, if you've been a long time resident in the place that you live, to say like, God, would you open my eyes to the things that I have simply become deaf and blind to because I just see it and I never even pay attention? And so there's the macro level. And arguably the most impact and effect you could have in your neighborhood is just with the people. Because you can know a lot but not do a lot. But if you know people, you can do a lot with people. And so on the micro level, it's just simply knowing the people who are around you. And as at the end of this discussion today, you're going to have a chance to fill out a block map of your neighborhood, just the people, the houses in your neighborhood. Do you know the people that live around you? I mean, if you have been a Christian for some season, you know that the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. That's the second greatest commandment. And so in my experience, and maybe this is the case for you, I don't know, but what has neighbor become? It's almost become this kind of defined to be everybody, and so suddenly it's nobody. But what if neighbor actually meant your neighbor, like literally your neighbor? How important then it is that we would know the neighbors that live around us, that we know their names, that we get to know their stories, that we get to know their hurts and their passions, their hang-ups. We need to love them as ourselves. And so many of us, I find, don't know the people who live even next door to us. It can be a lonely time. It can be a lonely society. But this is something that God's inviting us into and to consider what we might do about that. And maybe you lived in your house for a long time and you have a neighbor that lives next to you and you've never gotten to know their name. It's been like 10 years and it's like, it's probably paralyzing to even think, man, can I even get to know their name? How could I even begin to ask? But the easiest thing to begin a relationship, this is absolutely definitively true. To move from stranger to acquaintance, it takes one question. What's your name? That's it. From stranger to acquaintance, you just did it with one question. And so once you know their name, you can actually get to know them. You can learn their history, their heart passions, their hopes, their hurts, called the 4 H's of listening. So first, history. Where are you from? What's your family of origin? Where did you grow up? Did you go to church? All that kind of stuff, the background information. Heart passions. What do you like to do? You have any hobbies? Do you like to watch sports? Do you like to go play golf? Do you like to go swim? Anything. Side projects that you're working on. What kind of stuff is going on there? And then hopes. What do you want to do in life? What are your goals? What are your bucket list items? What do you want to accomplish with yourself? And then the last one is hurts. If I could just wave a magic wand and change one thing about my life, if you could change one thing about your life, what would it be? If you could change about thing in your past, what would it be? If you could change one thing about this community that you live in, what would that be? Listen to that and see what comes up. Listening is so important. It changes how we love people. It helps us love in the way that they need love. And so, blessings on your conversation, and I hope that as you listen to each other, you'll be able to better listen to how God is at work in the very people who are around you.